Grace and peace from God our Father and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Welcome to spreadingtruthministry.com on YouTube. And today I am reviewing the Preachers of LA episode 5. And so here it is. Interesting episode. It wasn't a lot, but yet interesting. I think we got to know the reality cast, I guess, in a more of a deeper way, in my opinion. We got to see different sides of them. So let's get to it. So basically, after the sound bite, basically in the beginning, they do this intro of all the different preachers' messages, and they do like little sound bites of their messages. And after which the episode actually begins with Bishop Jones coming back from Ghana, Africa, and basically sharing with his security guard / driver his experience there in Africa. And he comes bearing gifts. He gives him a gift. I guess he was thinking about him in Africa, which I thought was nice. He gives him a little outfit or whatever, and we just kind of shared the experience and kind of talked about, basically, he's only going to be, I guess, in California for a couple of days, and he's making moves or making plans to be in New Orleans for the Essence Festival. And so in walks in Sister Loretta, and she comes to discuss with him about the preparations for the 4th of July celebration. Bishop Jones makes it known to us that this is something that he does every year. He does a little party or event for his family and friends and such, and they come over and they really have a good time at his home. And so they discussed the guest list of, who, basically Sister Loretta said that she would be interested in spearheading it. Like, she would take care of everything and he doesn't have to worry about it, especially since he's planning to leave in a couple of days, that she's got it covered. And so they discussed the guest list. He shares with her, who he wants to be in attendance at the party. And, in her talking head or in her confessional, she admits that I don't think that she really wanted to see the other ladies, especially since she felt like she was being confronted during the ladies' tea. But again, this is his event, so out of respect, obviously to him and his wishes, she didn't even complain about it. She just did whatever she was asked to do. Next, Bishop Cheney's family also met for a barbecue, obviously for the holiday, with the special guest being his Granny Cheney. And so Granny Cheney is significant because she is a co-founder of the church. Her and her husband, they're the ones that started the church, that the church was started or established in their home, and it grew to be what it is today. And so, of course, he has a special love for her, a special honor for her as the co-founder of the church. And so I'm sure she has a lot of wisdom. Obviously, she's been there, done that. She's the pillar of that church, and so of course he esteems her highly. And I guess he's also humbled at the fact that they wanted him to take on the legacy. And so during the barbecue, he expressed to her about his concerns and regarding ministry, because she asked him how things were coming along, and he was honest, and said that the ministry, it's becoming a lot, and and sometimes he feels overwhelmed. And so she felt a certain kind of way about the way he expressed his concern about it, and she almost felt like, not that he was being ungrateful, but she felt like he was being a tad bit inconsiderate. And I think what she felt was, they built up that work, and that's what they prayed for, was it to be at the level that it is today. And this is like, I guess in her mind, this was like a vision being accomplished. Like, this was the mission, this was the goal, the objective for the ministry to be big to the point where the demand would be much, so that they can grow and whatever. And so she suggested to him that he seek out an assistant to help take on that burden and responsibility. And the same thing was told to Moses, because as we know, Moses had the children of Israel. So that's a mega church in the wilderness after they were delivered from Egypt. And so it was suggested by Moses' father-in-law that he appoints elders to assist him when dealing with problems and situations and counseling people and that and judging matters and that type of thing, so that he can be concerned with getting the word from the Lord. And so that's the wisdom. And so basically she was providing him with the same wisdom that was given to Moses, and you know, God obviously smiles upon that. One man can, he's now island, number one, and one man can't handle it all. So you need to learn to distribute responsibility so that you don't have an overload, so that you're not overwhelmed. And so he expressed the fact that he doesn't believe that there's anyone there that would actually fit the role, or that would be able to assume that kind of responsibility. And so that's kind of interesting. You know, of course, I've never been in church or whatever, but I think every church wants to have somebody, every leader at a church wants to have somebody that they can fall back on, because again, that is a great responsibility. And so you want to be able to at least have a couple people that you can entrust with the people and with the business aspect of the ministry. And so it kind of ends there, the conversation, but it will continue later. Next is Bishop Jones and Minister Haddon. They meet at actually Bishop Jones' house. Minister Haddon comes over, and I like his personality. I mean, he's an extremist. It seems like his personality goes to extremes. He can be really high, like he can be really happy and joyful and ecstatic and hype and pumped. He can be so low, you know what I mean? Just negative and that's what I see about him. There's no ever even kill. It's at the extreme. So he's an extremist, and in my opinion, I don't know, tell me if you feel the same or not, but he seems to be. So he seems to be really happy, you know, now he's married and he's getting what he can get or whatever. He's excited. He's with the love of his life. He's with his daughter or whatever. They're together. So he's pumped. He's excited. And so he comes over to the house and he talks about his door, and you know how it's kind of like a bulletproof door. I mean, the door was kind of a strong door. He said, who has a door like this? And so he makes jokes and makes he was making light of things. And when he came in, Bishop Jones, he basically expressed to Bishop Jones, you know, about his house and how great it was. And Bishop Jones basically was like, you know, you can get to this level too. You know, where are you at, you know, in terms of your other responsibilities in regards to preaching and pastoring, that type of thing. And, you know, he was like basically sharing that, you know, Minister Haddon was sharing with Bishop Jones that, you know, during the time at his lowest state, that Bishop Jones ministered to him, and that word touched him in a profound way, to the point where it changed his life. And he felt like God was with him, even though that he was at the lowest state of his spiritual being, and that, you know, making the choices that he's made and experiencing the things that he experienced with his previous marriage, that Bishop Jones, that word ministered to his situation and it blessed him. So he shared that with him. And Bishop Jones encouraged him to get back to preaching. And he just basically was encouraging him, you know, you got to continue doing what God has called you to do. Because at the end of the day, if God has called you to do that, that's what you have to continue doing. And so then Minister Haddon asked Bishop Jones about his desire to want to settle down. And, you know, he was like, I know there's plenty of ladies and this and that. And, you know, and he was also, you know, like, well, how about, you know, Sister Loretta? And so Bishop Jones admitted, you know, that basically, you know, he's busy. He's busy, and he needs a person in his life that can deal with the busyness. And you know, he didn't allude to his previous marriage in this particular scene, but later on he goes into the fact that his previous marriage failed because he was so busy. So in other words, he was just saying to him that he needs a person that will be able to evolve around him and his situation, and not necessarily him evolve around her and her situation. You know, and that's what he basically said. And he was saying that he's not saying that he's perfect. He's saying that he's also damaged, and he admitted to that. So he has a level of insight. In terms of the evolving around him, that type of thing, you know, you know, Minister Haddon admitted, well, maybe you're not ready for marriage, because the truth of the matter is you cannot have a marital situation where it's all about one person. It's just never going to work, because the two become one. So you cannot have it be all about you, Bishop Jones, and all of your splendor and grandeur. You just cannot. It can't work that way. It's not going to work. You're not going to find anybody that's going to settle for that. It's just not fair. And that person eventually, initially they'll be okay, especially if they really love you, they'll put up with a lot initially. But after a while, it becomes old, and they're gonna be wanting something in return. And so it's just not fair, and that's not how. Because if we read the scriptures in regards to how husbands should love their wives, or Christ loved the church, Christ put the church first. Christ, gave his life for the church. So it wasn't about the church evolving around Christ. It's about Christ making sure church had Christ making sure that the church has everything that she needs, and protecting her and providing for her, and girding her, and that type of thing. So but later he's gonna see, really see what the problem is. But in that moment, he's just kind of sharing. Next, Bishop Jones. Next, it was Bishop Jones' 4th of July party, where most of the cast members were in attendance, for the exception of two. McClendon and Pastor Jay. They were not in attendance for whatever reason. Maybe their schedules just couldn't permit. But they all arrive, and they come in their own little way. And it's funny because Bishop Gibson and his wife arrives, and he asked Bishop Jones if he could tickle his keys, which is, I believe that's a baby grand piano. I'm assuming, I'm not sure exactly what, but I'm sure it's the top of the line, whatever it is. So he asked him, can he go tickle his keys? And he plays a song while the men gather around. They were clapping and swaying, and he was singing. It was a moment. And they teased him about him being a triple threat, because I think because even Minister Haddon made a comment like, he act like he got a record deal, you know what I'm saying? But obviously he was trained to play the piano, and he played really nicely. I thought he played pretty nicely. I was surprised. Had a little tune, was able to sing a little something too. And it's so funny, in his little talking head or whatever, he was like, he slays it, like if he gonna play, he gonna kill it. And it's so funny. So that's what Bishop Gibson claims. Next, Sister Loretta got many compliments on her culinary abilities. She did well. Everybody enjoyed the food, and Bishop Gibson was like, did you cook this? This tastes great. She was like, oh yeah. He's like, do you cook for Bishop Jones like this all the time? She said, oh yeah. He was like, oh, you know what they say. And that's what they always go there. If it's a single woman cooking some food for a man, oh yeah, he just, if he can, hit that stomach, you get that heart. So he begins to imply that, if she's a good woman, and so, hey, what's up? And so Bishop Gibson, he challenges Bishop Jones at a game of pool, and he basically wanted to set wager, that if he won, that he has to marry Sister Loretta. And Bishop Jones was like, well, what if I win? He was like, well, if you win, you can you can remain a bachelor. And he was like, and I'll marry y'all today. And I was like, oh my goodness. So that was the challenge. Of course, there was all kinds of level of pressure at that moment. Bishop Jones was like, I got to win this thing. I don't want to be pressured into doing anything, especially to something to that level for him, especially since he's been with a person for 16 years. Clearly, he has commitment issues. And so they played the game, and the other men, of course, they expressed their thoughts in their talking head and their confessionals about how they felt like Bishop G was kind of out of line. They felt like, he crossed some lines, and, he took it too far, that's how they felt about it. And so anyway, they went on, and also Bishop Jones shared in his confessional, like, are you serious right now? Like, we cannot, this is my life that we're playing with here. And he's saying that basically, and he admitted to it, and I believe this was the underlying truth. He's saying that, do I really want to take a chance on marriage and ruin a friendship? And I really think, like I said, he admits that there are some issues in regards to his past that's affecting his present. And the fact that marriage would ruin it. It's not marriage that's going to ruin your situation. Marriage is not the problem. Marriage is the institution that was ordained by God. Marriage is never the problem. It's the two people that come together. And namely, it's the individuals and whatever issues that they may have that contribute to the problems in their marriage, not marriage itself. I have another person, a friend of mine that, had a bad marital situation, and they were to the point where they're never going to get married again. I mean, they just concluded the fact that it was marriage that did it. Man, now that is the person seeing people, absolutely been in and out of relationships or whatever, but refused to commit. Now here's the thing, I tell the person, listen, marriage wasn't the problem. It was the person who you selected. That's what the problem was. The fact that you both weren't compatible, and you had your issues. And so don't blame it on marriage. You have to learn to take accountability for the part that, number one, you played, because it takes two to ruin a marriage, not just one person. Now one person can, sometimes the scale can be, a bit heavy in certain situations, but at the end of the day, it does take two, whether it be you agreeing to go with a person that is not quite suitable for you, and compromising or whatever, and trying to see if you can try to fix them or make them be who you want them to be, and you come to find out that they can't change, and whatever. Or you have one thing in your mind in terms of what you think you're getting, and this person deceives you, ends up being something totally different or whatever. So again, it's the people, it's not marriage. And so of course he was taken back by the wager, but clearly this situation, if nothing else, emphasized, and later on as well, that Bishop Jones clearly has some commitment issues for sure. Next, the couples are all coupled up. They go to his rooftop of his house to view the fireworks display, because it's the 4th of July in America. And so they view it, and the couple's all coupled up, and they're kissing and hugging and bonding, and and Sister Loretta's observing and just kind of looking at the couples, and she's making an observation that everybody looked happy, and this is what she desires someday for her and Bishop Jones, that they would be able to be a couple together and be open. What I'm saying? Like the other couples, they have no restraint. They're together. It's open. It's obvious. People know they're a couple, and they're hugged up. They're kissing. They're being romantic, and that's what she's looking forward to with Bishop Jones. And so later in that evening, the ladies, go to Sister Loretta, and they compliment her again on her skills, catering the event, and the fact that, she's a wonderful person. And, basically she assumed the role as the lady of the house, and, emphasized the fact that, we said before that your merchandise was good, but not only is your merchandise good, but your merchandise is superb. Like, you have a lot of talents and ability. You're smart, you're grounded, you're skilled in the area of what you do, and as far as cooking and things of that nature, and organizing and executing, and everything was exceptional, and what I'm saying, very professional, and that sort of thing. So they're just encouraging her. You have so much to offer. And so she felt a certain kind of way, because, it's an awkward situation to be in a relationship with somebody for 16 years and not to be considered for a wife. You know what I mean? You're just stuck at a friend, and nobody wants to be stuck at the friend level, especially when you want more. And I think she wants more. And every time the women talk to her about it, I think they point out the fact that she's not wife. You know what I mean? She's not at that level that she should be. And I think it's a constant reminder. So it's annoying to her. But the truth is, the women are right. She deserves more. The women are right that she is somebody's wife, and that she should be somebody's wife, and that she shouldn't be somebody's sidekick for 16 years. That's unacceptable. And I would have to agree. And so it's not the women's fault, even though they make her feel uncomfortable, but that's the reality of her situation. And I feel like the women remind her of the reality of her situation. So she did tell them that she believes that one day that it will happen. But right now, it is what it is. She accepts him for who he is in terms of his traveling and things of that nature. And while he's traveling, doing the work of the ministry, she's doing her. She's doing, she's filling her obligations, whatever she's into, so they make it work as is. But she does express the fact that she does want more. And I think she was honest about that from the beginning, even though she kept saying that they're friends. But I think she is now becoming a little bit more open and honest about her real feelings in regards to him. But at the end of the day, she realizes that she doesn't have any control over the relationship, that it has to be a mutual thing. After the party, there was a conversation between Bishop Jones and Sister Loretta, right? Obvious, transition. So they talk about their 16-year relationship. And she points out the fact that he's a commitment phobe, and he admits that he has problems. And, she encourages him that he needs to find a solution. And so that was pretty much the gist of the conversation. And so he admits that maybe he should talk to a professional or seek professional help, because clearly there is a problem there. Next, Pastor Cheney pulls Lady Cheney to the side to ask her about the full-time ministry again. The grandmother asked him about the assistant. I think his wife made it known to him that she was interested during that time that he had pulled to the side, that she was interested in being being in ministry full-time and assuming that role as, the executive pastor. And he was just sharing his concerns in regards to that he doesn't want, the things that go on in the office and the things that go on in the ministry to follow them at home. And I would have to agree. A lot of people have a hard time turning it off and turning it on when it comes to business, especially when they're partners in business. And it can ruin a relationship and it can ruin a marriage. So both people have to be committed to not bringing their problems at the office unless it's agreed upon. You know what I mean? Because certain situations, especially emergencies, they're going to happen, especially in ministry. You're going to receive a call late night, wee hours in the morning about a situation. Then guess what? You got to put your pastor hat on, your minister's hat on, and you got to assume the role. Yes, you're at home. Yes, you're away from the office, but there are times where the two will intermingle. But what he's saying is that he doesn't want the conflicts and the issues and things that may arise in ministry to interfere with their marriage, where they're arguing and bickering or it's causing strife between the two. And I totally agree with him. So as long as she is, in agreement with that, it should be perfectly fine. I think pastors and wives that are gifted in that area are the best for the job, better than another individual outside, because they're already walking together. She understands the vision, just like his grandmother and her husband were founders of that ministry initially. They worked together to build that ministry. And so I think, especially when the woman is gifted in an area. Now, if she isn't gifted in an area, maybe she has other giftings, then I think that she should walk in the vocation of her calling. I don't think every woman has the ability to be an executive pastor. But there are women that can assume the role. They have the gifts. They have, things and skill and ability that God has given them to assume that role. There are women that can assume the role as pastor, with a covering. I agree. I believe with a covering. But I do believe that a woman can assume the role, just like the scripture says that there is no male or female in Christ Jesus. Now, I know there are some people that believe that women can't be. Really, you need to study a little bit more, because I believe there are some people that feel that way, but I am not under that persuasion, nor am I going to debate the issue. I believe that she can assume a role. It's an administrative role, just like a woman can be an administrator in business outside the church, non-secular. A woman can assume the role as an administrator in the church. Okay, same thing. It's the business aspect of it. It's making sure the bills are paid, making sure that things are taken care of, organizing things, shifting things. Yes, a woman is a great administrator. I think that because she manages family all the time, and that's what administrators do. They manage things. And so I think that she'll be able to assume the role just fine. I think if her husband has confidence in her based on her experience and what she's able to do, I think that he can vouch for her. I think it's perfect. All right, so that's what's going on with that. And so she expressed that, they can do it and they should do what they can to make it work. Next is the preparation for the Essence festivals. The Haddons prepare for it, and then they arrive. I'm not going to go into all the little minor details regarding Sister Dominique's conversation with her mother and stuff about caring for her daughter and stuff like that. They made preparations to go to the Essence festival, and they arrive. All right, so the Haddons arrive, and they're eager to share their space as a married couple. Okay, they're on their mini honeymoon, and Minister Haddon is excited. He's elated at the fact that they're a couple and they can share their marriage. What he called, he said, this bed is undefiled, as he put it. And so I thought that was kind of funny. And so he was just like, let's get ourselves refreshened, let's take a shower together. He was emphasizing that. And I just thought it was funny. It was just extra. Like I said, he's an extremist. He's like extreme. He's like, oh my goodness, it was funny to me. But anywho, she was like, okay, well, let me get my hair together. She said, because I'm a black girl, so I can't just go all in there, this and that. And he was like, why not? She's like, because my hair. He was like, what? So he was trying to act like he didn't know that her hair was fake, that she had weave in her hair. He was like, what? What else is fake? Is that you about to take out a tooth? I was cracking up. Like, he said, the things you find out once you get married. And I'm telling you, because I've been married before, that is so true. You don't really know nobody until you marry them. And so you get to see the real deal. I mean, the whole kit and caboodle. You get to see the real deal. It was just so funny. He was like, can you take it off? She said, if I got some scissors, because she got to sew in. I was just like, it was funny. That little moment, that little segment was hilarious. But anyway, they enjoyed their little moment together. And so they were walking down the streets of New Orleans, and they saw this lady with a street sign that said John 3:16 on it. And so they felt compelled to stop and, ask her, is she okay? And so they asked about what was she doing, and she was basically sharing with them, this was my favorite part, that she was sharing with them that she was spreading the gospel. And basically she was just resting. Her feet were swollen, so she had it propped up. And so he was just really taken back at her and her determination to share the gospel. He was like, well, do you have, the money and that type of thing? And she was like, no. And she said, no, don't ask for it. She said, I don't ask people for money. And so he was like, just like, what? Just really taken back at just the raw deal, just the real deal there. Just completely just want to do God's will, not looking for the money, not looking for the fame or the notoriety, just simply taking the gospel on the streets and just sharing it with whomsoever would listen, whomsoever would be willing to just, take a moment to just, share in that experience. And so, he felt compelled to pray for her. And after he prayed for her, he felt compelled to give to her ministry and plant a seed towards her mission. And so I really like that. He was moved by that experience, and I hope that it really encouraged him to maybe rethink some things in regards to how he should position himself as a minister. So I think that that's a really good example of, to me, what ministry should be about. The disciples, the apostles, the disciples, aka apostles, were not looking for big names in ministry. They weren't looking to be popular. Some of them, asked Jesus and stuff like that, and Jesus was like, okay, you're gonna have to pay a price for, the role that you want. So there is a price to pay, but at the end of the day, they were motivated and moved by the purpose that God had in their life and to fulfill their purpose and their call. They were moved at just doing what God wanted them to do. And that within itself gave them the joy and the fuel to push through. And so that was a moving experience. It moved me too. And so I hope that stays with him. And so he ended up praying for another man that said that he was touching and agreeing with him while he was praying for the lady, and that he often looks out for her because he sees her on the street and that type of thing. So he prayed for him as well and pronounced a blessing over his life. So that was a really moving, touching scene. I like that a lot. And they walked down the street. They continued on and just kind of just reminiscing about the experience and just how he was moved and that type of thing. So next, Pastor Cheney finally meets with the church board to discuss the executive pastor position and his suggestion of his wife, and felt like that she would be able to fill that role, and he wanted to get their feedback, and they provided it. They seemed to be not on board with it. They seemed to be against it. He described the duty and the responsibility of an executive pastor. And, again, they shared their constructive, criticism. And he let them know basically that, she is capable, that she's able, and if she was interviewing for the position, that she would be, one of many that would fit just fine into their organization. And she has the ability to assume the role. So at the end of the day, he did talk to her again. She expressed her deepest concerns and motivation to want to support her husband in the ministry and to want to please God and to work for him and, to fulfill her purpose and her call that's upon her life. So he agreed that she could take the position. Next, Minister Haddon meets with Bishop Jones for dinner. Minister Haddon and his wife meets with Bishop Jones for dinner. They're still in New Orleans. And they talk shop, they talk ministry. Then Minister Haddon told him about the fact that they were married, that they went ahead and they got married. And so Bishop Jones was happy about it. He was like, he approved of, he understood why he took that route, and, but he still wanted to perform this ceremony. So he was just totally supportive of the move that they made, and, and just, he basically expressed that to them and said they were relieved because they didn't want him to bail out because they did it, without him. So, he had no problem with that. So at the end of the day, Minister Haddon brought up Bishop Gibson's, thing that he did with the whole pool thing and the whole wager thing regarding Loretta. And Bishop Jones just basically said he understands, basically where Bishop Gibson was coming from, but that's obviously his decision to make. And he basically expressed the fact that, yes, he was married before for many years, and he believed that the traveling messed that up. And so he believes that, if he gets into something else, that there's a potential of it messing up again because the traveling is not going to stop. And he also says that, maybe there is a reason why he's traveling so much. And I think that, Minister Haddon also pointed out that maybe there's a reason that's motivating you to do so much traveling, do so much ministry. You're always busy, always busy, always busy. Maybe you need to take a time out to figure out, well, why is it just so busy? Because at this stage, I don't believe it's a financial thing. I think that he's comfortable, that he doesn't really need the money. You know what I mean? I think that he's doing it for, we all know clearly that, especially by the end of the episode, that there's more to it than just meets the eye. And so Bishop Jones, I think for the first time, he realized in that conversation and with the other conversation that he had in the episode that maybe he's running from something, and that he's definitely open for counseling so that he can deal with whatever the issue is and get the healing that he needs. Next was the Essence Festival, and for those that don't know, it's an African American festival that celebrates African Americans in different ways. Their accomplishments in business and faith-based and nonprofits and different things that they have done in their communities. And so it's a huge festival. And so Bishop Jones was asked to co-host with Al Sharpton on a particular show. And then after that, he had a very busy schedule. So after which he had to preach a couple places. So he just expressed, this is Bishop Jones, he just expressed the fact that he was just physically exhausted. He's getting up there in age. So he does a lot. So he's going to have to reconsider, what he's doing. It's just, I think it's only just wise. He was just in Africa. He flew back to America, was only at his home for 2 days. Then he flew to New Orleans. And once he got to New Orleans, he's running around, he's hosting shows, he's preaching in it, and he has several engagements there. It's just a lot going on. Minister Haddon, he sings, he's able. He ministers, and Sister Dominique, Mrs. Haddon, sees his passion for the first time while he's on stage, and she's just acknowledging the fact that what he does in terms of singing and performing, that he's really into it. This is his niche. This is what he does, and he does it well. And so she acknowledges the fact that he's content, with doing that. And so Minister Haddon also acknowledges the fact that this is what he loves to do, and that he's happy where he's at right now. In terms of pastoring, again, that's something that he would gradually like to move towards, but right now he's just content with where he's at, with just singing and performing, etc. And he did make a statement about the message is universal, the singing and all this, and that, I feel like the gospel is universal. I think that music is universal, but I also think that the gospel of Jesus Christ is also universal. I don't think that music is greater than the gospel. The way he had worded it, I understood what he meant, but at the same time, I think that the gospel is just as universal, if not more so, because there's power in the word. In music, yeah, it will reach people, but it is limited. It is limited. You are limited. He said there is no limits, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there are limits in music. That's why you have genres. There are certain people that won't listen to certain types of genres of music, So it is what it is. Anyway, next was the Cheneys. Now, they came to conclusion that she was going to assume the role as the executive pastor, and she made a promise that she will not allow situations and circumstances to affect their relationship. What was funny to me about this particular scene was he was like, you know, I'll take we can take the world, right? And she was like, I agree. He said, with you by my side, we can take the world. And she was like, I agree. He said, but I want to take you first. He is like, I've met some people that talk about sex a lot in the church, but he's one where he's very highly sexual. And there's a lot of people like that, whether you're in the church or in the world. I think that's just a human condition. Not everybody's like that, but there are people that are highly sexual in the church. And so it's not unusual for certain people to be highly sexual. That's just their nature to be highly sexual. So when he said that, I just kind of laughed because I was just like, this man, whoo, child, they got the ministry, these kids, and all this other stuff. I hope she has the energy level as he does, or that's a lot. But anywho, next, Bishop Jones, he meets with his therapist, and I like this part as well. And he discovered that he's not quite over being abandoned at age 7 by his mother. And how he was abandoned, he was dropped off to live with his grandmother at age 7 in Jamaica, and he resided with her until he was 17. So that's for 10 years. So he said that he felt abandoned. Now, she didn't just up jump and leave him. I think she dropped him off, and then she may have seen him from time to time. Obviously, I think she was in the States, and so of course going back and forth, you got to have the money and that type of thing. So she probably could not see him as frequently as she wanted to, nor as frequently as he desired for her to. But nevertheless, it negatively impacted him. It negatively impacted, and not only negatively impacted him, but it shaped his views, and it also caused him to treat women in a certain way, have a certain view of women a certain way because of his experience as a boy. And he admits that he worked so hard to avoid feeling the abandonment, to avoid dealing with what's really going on. And he does it also to avoid being cornered into a situation or being forced to do something that he doesn't want to do. And so that was a breakthrough, in my opinion. I think that the first step to recovery is acknowledgement. And so he acknowledged the fact that, and a lot of us have these kind of issues, but I think we just go on, we self-medicate or band-aid it because we don't really deal with the situation. We just move on and just think and hope and pray that it will go away instead of dealing with these issues head on and acknowledging that there's something wrong and really asking God to, heal us, but us doing our part by talking about it and making reconciliation and doing the things that we need to do on our end to bring about healing as well. And so kudos to him, for real, because that's hard, especially for men. Men and counseling, a lot of men have issues going to counseling. A lot of men have issues tapping into really the deep insides of them. A lot of men have an issue doing that. So kudos to him for not only doing it for himself, but being open enough to do it in front of the world. Now that's huge, and being open to scrutiny. And so that was a breakthrough. It's clear that not only that situation, but it affected his marriage because obviously he probably felt like his previous wife abandoned him. And he also acknowledged that he did not know whether Loretta was going to hang in there, whether she's really interested for the long haul, even though she's been there for 16 years. And so the therapist pointed out that she's been consistent. She's been there. You can trust her. I think she's proven herself. But again, the issue is with him. And so she strongly suggests that they both take a break from each other. That clearly he needs some time to try to figure it out. He was almost brought to tears in a couple of situations, during that conversation. So, and he feels really scared because, you're dealing with some emotional baggage. So it's kind of scary. So at the end, he's walking his dog, or they're walking their dog because they're together, him and Sister Loretta, Bishop Jones, and they're talking about his experience with the therapist. And he was just completely honest with her. Everything that I share with you guys, he shared with her about him almost coming to tears, about issues of abandonment, issues of commitment, and that he needs time to try to figure it out. And he also pointed out that he's not trying to figure out if he's suitable for her. He's trying to figure out what's best for him, and that's how it ended. So that's pretty much the review of episode 5. Episode 6 is going to be a doozy. I don't have any major concerns. I really don't. I'm not going to nitpick the episodes to death. I'm just not going to do that. If something comes up that I think should be addressed, I will address it. There were people that made comments about the other videos that maybe they had concerns about. I'll comment on your concerns and then we can have a dialogue. But these people are not perfect by any means. They have their issues, clearly. Just because you're in ministry doesn't mean that you're perfect. We're all striving for perfection. The preaching of the gospel and the teaching of the gospel is for the perfecting of the saints, which means that we're not quite done. We're not finished in terms of our process. And so these men, though they might be preachers of it, maybe they may be the ones that's administering the gospel, but they have to apply that same gospel to their own personal lives. So that's also a process. So when I look at this situation, I don't judge them on a scale of up here, like they should be perfect. No, they are where they are. The word is what it is. And so, yes, we all need to come up. And so just like they need to come up, yes, I do not agree with their certain lifestyles, the things that they've done on camera. I don't necessarily, that we've seen, I don't necessarily agree with it, whatever. But I see their efforts and I just want to commend them on their efforts, and whatever that they're doing that's not measuring up to the word. My prayer is that they will one day measure up to the word. But I think we can all learn something from their experience so that we can be better, whether it be the negative or the positive, so that we can be better people. So that's what it's about for me. I know there are people that want to rip it apart, that's trying to condemn it and da-da-da. And yeah, there are some things to be condemned. I would have to agree with that. But at the same time, I'm trying to be objective, and I will continue to stay objective because I want to use this situation as a learning experience. And so that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, shalom.